anger, resentment, and disconnection in our community around this. Students and survivors are still waiting for an apology. They're still waiting for a real investigation as to whether there was an order to shoot or not. Members of the community are still really resentful of physical damage that the student protesters did in town in the few days leading up to that shooting. The protests included breaking windows and setting tires on fire in town. And we're doing a project that we hope will create space around all the people that we expect for our 50th anniversary coming up to build more connection across using spatialized stories.
So the University Archive has collected more than 100 oral histories from people who were involved in some way with the shooting. And so our idea was to geo-reference these oral histories and to put them on a map. So the goal there being, one, is to shift the narrative of the story away from the National Historic Landmark Site. The National Historic Landmark Site is where the shooting actually occurred, but as Sarah mentioned, this was a much broader series of events that went over a longer timeline, and was also involved both the city and the campus more broadly than just one specific location on campus that's now been designated a National Historic Landmark. So we're hoping that this will expand kind of spatial thinking beyond that, but also provide more nuance than just this idea of kind of town versus gown or National Guard versus students. And so what we're creating is a series of products. This is a very drafty version of a map. The historic area was taken less than a month before the actual shooting occurred, and we've got a reverse directory to give us locations of places and businesses. So this is just one example. We should end up with dots all over the map, which is really cool, but this is what it will look like. This is just a mock-up where you'll be able to click on a location that has a memory tied to it, a story, and the stories are just clips from these 1 hour long oral histories, and they're maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and so then you could go then click on this, not fake version of this. You could click on that and listen to it. You can also click on the person's name and go to actually see the transcript or listen to the full oral histories. And this is what the library's website looks like now. And what we would add to it would be a relatively subtle, when you go to the transcript, an opportunity to turn the georeferences on or off. So you could click on that, and then you could see that there's some of these have place-based stories. And when you click on that place, some of these will have multiple narratives that might be seen from different perspectives. And so it'll be seen spatially, which in some ways is maybe a little more democratic in the way that they're currently housed, or at least just give you different options for viewing those. So that's one aspect, is having this website that ties in with the university archives, and the other would be to have a phone app that you could sign up for that would be great for these visitors coming for the 50th anniversary, that would ping when you reach specific locations that you can hear those stories.
Well, we're also hoping to get people to share more stories and interact with these stories. So many people have been reluctant to share their stories with that official archive because there's still a lot of resentment of the university and the university's lack of an apology, the role the university played in the shooting. So we're hoping that people will be more likely to share their story in the app and share place-based stories in the app, but also if they don't have their own story to share, just to respond to the stories that they're reading or hearing. One potential way to respond to those stories would also be through encouraging app users to make blackout poetry with the transcripts of the stories. Our Poetry Center on campus has developed an app that allows for people to fade away certain parts of the text to a degree that they choose, and have certain words stand out. So they could create poetry in that way too. And then we'll do research off of that poetry to see what words stand out to people and how people are responding and engaging with these stories. And again, the hope is that spatializing stories in these ways will make it easier for some people to speak, for other people, different voices to be heard, and ultimately to build some reconciliation.
So So this is a handout that has a few more details on the process that we're using to create, hopefully, eventually, this app and this website. However, we're still kind of in the planning process, and neither Sarah nor I come from a background of GIS and web development. So we're kind of just dreaming this dream. And so Sarah's actually, just to give you a little background, is a geographer by training, but is in our School of Peace and Conflict Studies, which was developed as a, let's see if I get this right, living memorial to May 4th, right after. I mean, that was within a year or two after the event, and has expanded to this school and is doing a number of hires, and so she's been doing work there, and I'm a geographer and work with Main Street Kent, so our downtown Main Street organization, doing maps for them. And so I do cartography and I do wayfinding maps, but I have not worked with anything other than really basic web mapping. And so what we wanted to wrap up with, and save for when we reach the question point or any time you run into us in the hallway, is ideas about how to build these apps and website, how to fund them, what platforms we should be using, and who to hire. So, all right, thank you.
Thanks.